Hi everyone and welcome back. It's Gina from orchidandopal.com, and today I'm back with a tutorial for this bangle bracelet, which includes two of the types of beads that came in the recent 2-hole Beads of the Month Club subscription that I shared on my channel earlier this month. In that video I said I'd be back later on to share a tutorial, so this is what I came up with using the 2-hole crescent beads and the 2-hole triangle beads that came in that package, and simply added to that some size 11 seed beads. If you want to check out that unboxing, I will link that in the corner if you haven't seen that yet, and I will leave a link to the subscription that I'm talking about, the 2-hole Beads of the Month Club, which is something that often inspires me to come up with new ideas using some of these unique multi-hole shape check glass beads that arrive as a surprise in that monthly package. Down below, I'll also leave the links to all of these materials separately at places you can pick these up if you don't have any of these bead shapes on hand already, and you'll also find the quantities of everything that you'll need down below too. Besides the 3 types of beads you can see here, I'll also be using a size 11 beading needle today, but a size 10, 11, or 12 should be just fine. And for my beading thread of choice, I'll be using the 6-pound .006-inch diameter Fireline in the black color, which is just easier to see in the video. Also, before I forget, regarding the subscription, they do have all different types besides the 2-hole beads that you can check out and see which ones are right for you. I also have a playlist sharing many different unboxings of their different types of clubs. And if you'd like to sign up, I have a coupon code. It's OPAL10. That will save you 10% off the first month of your first club if you'd like to try them out. And that will be down below also, along with the link. Now, when it comes to sizing for a bangle bracelet, one idea for you in order to measure your own size or the right fit of the bracelet that you want to make, you can take a piece of string or yarn and wrap it around the widest portion of your hand with your thumb tucked in, and then use that yarn to then measure along with a measuring tape or a ruler to see how long you might want to make that bracelet. Or you might want to just use a bangle that you already have that fits you well that you'd like to replicate in size. So I actually have 2 different sizes that I made here. One of them, the smaller one, is about 7.5 inches on the inside. And the other one, the larger one, is about 8.25 inches on the inside. And what I found out is for every additional section of triangles or crescents, if you add those both together, every additional group of 2 of those on your bracelet is going to add another 1/4 inch. So I think I'm going to make one today that's about 7.75 inches on the inside, so a tiny bit bigger than this one. I'm able to get this one on, but it's a little bit tighter than I'd like it to be, until it's on my wrist, that is. So to make that a 1/4 inch bigger or longer, I'm going to be adding another section with a crescent bead and the triangles to this particular size. So that'll be the size we're making today, about 7.75 inches on the inside. And for that one, we're going to be using 33 total crescent beads and 33 rows of 2 triangle beads. And what I'll try to do is leave some of that information in the corresponding blog post. That way, if you'd like to make one of a different size, you'll be able to calculate that pretty easily. But what we're going to do first is work with our size 11 round seed beads, and I recommend going with either the Miyuki or Toho brand. I have the Miyuki that I'll be using today, and we'll start out this bracelet from the bottom up, and we're going to be completing the first step in square stitch. So if you're making this along with me, you can go ahead and gather up your materials, thread your beading needle with a comfortable length of beading thread. You'll be adding more as you go. And then we can jump into this tutorial. All right, now many of you know I don't normally use a stop bead, but for this I'm going to. So I'm just going to string on a bead that's totally random, not going to be used in our project, so that it stands out a little bit from what we're doing. And I've strung that on towards the bottom of my thread, leaving a little tail. And then I'm just going to sew back through it to lightly secure that on the end of our thread. And that'll act as a temporary barrier or stopper for the beads that we're going to be adding. And for this bracelet, since I know I'm going to be using 33 crescent beads and 33 triangle bead sections, The way we're going to figure out how many seed beads we want to string on in this first step is by multiplying that number times 4. So 33 times 4, that should be 132 if I calculated it correctly. And that's the number of seed beads we're going to start out stringing on to our thread. So just start picking those up, and you can even pick those up in groups of 10 or 20 to make it easier for you when you're counting those. And you can always add more or take them away after we do this. So even if you're off by a couple of beads, it's not going to be the end of the world, but you can aim to get that exact amount on your beading thread to start. Since it's not so interesting for me to be picking up 132 seed beads in front of you in real time, I'm just going to speed this up a little bit, and after I have all those seed beads strung on, we will meet back and continue on with our square stitch portion. And welcome back. So now I have 132 seed beads on my thread, and I just counted these, like I said, by going in groups of 10, just separating those out as I went after I had strung the majority of them on. And now we're going to add one row to this entire length of seed beads using square stitch. So what we'll do with our seed beads pulled down towards our tail and stopping at that stop bead, just one at a time, we'll pick up one new seed bead and sew down the one that's already at the end. And those will just slide up there. And then you're going to sew up through the new seed bead. Now you'll pick up another new seed bead. This time we'll go down through those two that'll be on the left-hand side and let that new one sit there on the right. So now that's 2 rows completed, and we'll sew up through the 2 new ones on the right. And just pull that tight. And once again, we'll pick up one new seed bead, go down the single one that is right above that new row that we made, and now go up through the 2 on the right. Now we have 3 rows complete. We'll do one more together, and you're just going to keep doing that the entire length of this string of seed beads. So again, I have the new seed bead. I'm going to go down the single one above the last row of 2 and pull that down. And then I'll go up the 2 that are on the right. And pull tightly. And now we have 4 rows done. So keep doing that all the way down until you have all of your original 132 seed beads connected with a new row of seed beads in square stitch. And when you get to this end of your beadwork, we'll meet back and continue on with our 2 by 132 strip of seed beads. And welcome back, everyone. So we have our square stitch strip in place. And right now we can just go ahead and slide off that stop bead. We don't really need that anymore. And take your fingers and just smooth out that strip of beadwork so that it's not too tight. You don't want it curling up. You want to make sure that it will sit straight. And I'm going to turn this to the end of our beadwork with the tail thread. And I'm just going to go down through the right hand side. That's the row with the tail thread that's coming out. And right here, I'm just going to go underneath that thread bridge after those 2 seed beads, make a loop, go through the loop, and we have a half hitch knot that's securing that tail thread a little bit more in place as we go. And at this point, we can add some additional beads to the side of this row. First, we'll pick up 2 seed beads and then sew down through the first 4 seed beads on the right side of this strip. And we're just going to be adding some extra beads to this side, a couple at a time. Now I'm going to take one of these triangle beads, and with the point facing away from me, the flat part closest to me, I'm going to be sewing through the left-hand side of that, and also picking up one more seed bead. Then I'm going to sew through those 2 new seed beads that we just added, and pull that tight. And then sew down through the next 5 seed beads this time in what is now the middle row. Then pick up 1 seed bead, go through the triangle and the next seed bead, and then sew up through 5 seed beads, the first 3 of which are right next to the seed bead triangle seed bead on the last row, plus 2 more. And then this is where we're just going to start adding beads in 2 at a time in the same way all the way down this entire length. So now let's pick up 2 seed beads and sew through the next seed bead that we get to in that new row right before the triangle. And then turn around and sew through the 3 seed beads next to that, plus 2 more beads, and pull tight. So it's kind of like we're adding on another row in a modified square stitch where we're adding on more than 1 bead at a time. And now we want to add 1 seed bead, and we'll pick up another triangle through the left-hand hole and sew through the first seed bead we get to on the new row, and then sew back through in the other direction the next 5 seed beads. So the 3 next to those, and then 2 more. And just keep repeating this. So once again, pick up 2 seed beads this time. Sew through the next seed bead that you get to on the new row, and then turn around and sew through 5 seed beads on the row that's on the left. Now we're ready for a seed bead and another triangle, going through the same hole every time. We want these to be exactly the same on the side. Sew through the next seed bead that you get to on the new row, and then turn around and sew through the 3 seed beads next to that, plus 2 more, and pull. So here's a close-up look at what we are adding. You can see the holes and everything. They're lined up exactly the same for those triangle beads so far all the way down. And you're going to continue adding the beads in that manner. 3 seed beads will be in between each of those triangles. And then we have a triangle bead that sits next to another row of seed beads in the center. So continue adding on beads. Feel free to back up the video if you need to. Right now we're on the part where we'll add 2 more new seed beads. And again, just take your time as you go and make sure you position those triangles so they sit exactly the same way along the entire strip. Once you've completed this side and gotten to the other end of your beadwork, we'll meet back and continue on. All right, so now that side is done and I'm at the end where I just need to add one more of our triangle beads this time with that one space that we have left. So I'm just picking one up, and this time I'll go down through the 2 seed beads. And that'll just sit there on the end till we connect all of this. And now I'll go up through the 2 seed beads in the center and make my way over to the other side. We're going to do the same thing we did before. So I'll just go down the first 2 beads on the far right now that we've turned this around. And we want to mirror everything that we did on the other side. So now on the right, we're going to pick up a seed bead. And once again, we'll go through the left-hand hole of a new triangle. And this time, let's go down through the 4 seed beads on the original strip. Now let's pick up 2 new seed beads. We can go ahead and connect those to that next seed bead, the new one, and let's go through the triangle again. Since that's on the end, we just want to make sure that's in place really well. And then go back down through the next 4 seed beads, plus do 2 more. So you end up with this now on the other side, and we're just going to match everything up. So now what we need to do is do the same thing we did before, which is pick up a seed bead and a triangle. We can go through the next seed bead and just pop those into place. Then go up through the 3 beads that are right next to those, heading in the other direction, plus 2 more. And pull nice and tight. And now we're at the part where we'll pick up 2 new seed beads, go through the next seed bead there, and then turn around and go back through the 3 beads plus 2 more. And pull. So do the exact same thing you did on this other side all the way to the other end of the bracelet, and at that point we'll meet back and we can start putting this all together. All right, everyone, and welcome back. So we are at the point where we can start to put our bangle together and join the 2 ends, which I think is the start of the more exciting part of this project. And I have my working thread currently coming out of this row, second from the left, and we're just going to bring these 2 ends together, with the idea being that we want to line up these rows and just zigzag through the beads, reinforcing this really well and making it so that the bangle looks seamless, like you couldn't find the actual starting and ending point of this beadwork. So coming out of this row right here, I'm just going to sew down, say, 4 beads on the other side. And just slowly pull this and begin the process of joining this all together. Now I'm going to go up through the 4 beads on the next row. And then sew through the first 4 beads on the other side of the bracelet in the same corresponding row that we are coming out of. Now let's turn around again. I'm going to go through the triangle this time on this outermost row, plus the next 3 seed beads, plus the next triangle, and the next 3 seed beads on the other side. And pull nice and tight. And let's work our way to the other side, going back up those 4 seed beads on the next row. And I'm going through just 2 seed beads this time on the other side. Now I'll swing around, go down through these 2 next to the ones that we're coming out of. And I'll just go through the first 2 beads on the other side of the piece. And now I'm going to turn around and go through the seed bead, the next triangle, and the next 2 seed beads on the other side. And just continue weaving these sides together. I'm going to go around the end row again, since that one can use a little bit more reinforcement. Just went through that first seed bead there this time. My needle doesn't want to go through that single seed bead right there, so I'm not going to force it. I'm going to go up through the single seed bead right next to this. And then head down through the seed bead next to that, plus the next triangle bead and the next seed bead on the other end. And you can just keep sewing back and forth through those sections as much as you want until it feels really strong, because you want that to be an area that doesn't feel like it's going to be at risk of coming apart, especially since it's a bangle and you may have to work that down your hand a little bit. You don't want it to be very susceptible to breaking. For now though, I want to show you what the next step is, and we want to make our way to one of the triangles that we get to next and come out of the bottom hole of that one, and then step up to the open hole of the triangle. And you can see we have our bangle positioned so that our triangles are going to sit like this, with their flat bottoms facing inward and that open hole sitting at the top on both sides. So if you have this sitting in the opposite way, the good news is it's really easy to flip that back over and get your beadwork so that your triangles are sitting like that. And now this is where we can start to add in our crescent beads. So what we're going to do is pick up a seed bead, and then with the crescent facing like this so that the rounded part that's bowed out is facing away from you, we're going to sew through the right hand hole of one of our crescents. And then pick up another seed bead. So you have a seed bead, crescent, and seed bead, and those are going to be sewn in between each triangle section. And now we're going to sew through the very next triangle that we get to through that open hole. And then we can turn around and sew through the triangle that is adjacent to that one, going the opposite direction. Pick up a seed bead and sew through the open hole of that same crescent we just added. And then pick up one more seed bead to match our other side, and we'll go through the open hole of the next triangle and pull that together. And then to wrap that up, we're going to sew through the adjacent triangle using the same holes, also through the next seed bead, crescent, and seed bead, and the next triangle. And pull that nice and tight. So we now have our very first section with a crescent bead. We're going to do that all the way around the bangle bracelet, and it should look a little something like this. So once again, we'll repeat this step. Pick up a seed bead and then a crescent through the right hand hole and another seed bead, and sew through the open hole of the next triangle bead that you get to. Sew back through the adjacent open hole of the next triangle, and then pick up a seed bead and sew through the open hole of the crescent. And then pick up a seed bead again and sew through the triangle. Make sure that's all sitting in place correctly like that. And then you can sew through the adjacent triangle, seed bead, crescent, seed bead, and the next triangle where you're going to be repeating this step again. And just make sure you're pulling this tight after each addition. And you can see how this is starting to come together. So we'll do one more while we're here, and then I will cut you loose and you can back up the video if you need to and just continue in the same manner. So our seed bead, our crescent through the right hand hole, and our seed bead, and then through the next triangle, and then through the adjacent triangle, picking up a seed bead, going through the open hole of the crescent, another seed bead, and through the next triangle. Pulling tight, and then sewing up in the other direction through all those beads once more. So just keep doing this all the way around the entire length of your bracelet, and after you're done, we will meet back. All right, and I'm on my very last one, so I'm just going to pick those up and head through the triangle bead where we started. The exact same thing on this very last one. And then back through the next one. Pick up that new seed bead. Go right through there, and a new seed bead to wrap it all up, going through that next triangle. And then back through the beads on the right. Pulling that tight, and all of our beads are now in place. So what you can do if you have enough thread, you can actually go through both of these rows again to just reinforce this and strengthen it even more. Make sure everything is nice and tight. Once you've done that, or if you decide your bracelet is feeling sturdy enough already, you can then make a couple of half-hitch knots to tie off your working thread and then trim off the excess after you've gone through a few more beads to hide the thread in your beadwork. So just finish up in that manner and your bracelet is complete. All right, everyone, so that wraps it up for today's tutorial. And I do want to mention that I had added thread several times to the piece as I was making this. It just wasn't shown on the video. So whenever you run out of thread, because everybody uses a different amount, whatever you're comfortable with, just like any other project, you'll stop where you are and then add some more and pick up where you left off. I want to thank you all so much for being here for this tutorial. I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you do decide to make this, you'll have to let me know in the comments down below. As a reminder, I have the full list of materials with quantities and links down below too, and a link to the Beads of the Month Club, specifically the 2-hole beads, although they have multiple different types of clubs you should definitely check out. And that coupon code you can use, Opal10, which is good off of your first month of your first club. Be sure to give the video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Also hit that share button below to share with your other beading friends. And be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, because I would love to have you back. That's all I have for this time. I hope to see you all again real soon though. And until next time, I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day. And as always, happy beading.